Something that I find very different to the UK here in China is the rents of properties don't sort of have much bearing on the cost of the property. So like in the UK, if you go to a nicer area, the rents are way expensive. Whereas here, that's not always the case. It's obviously more in the cities, but the rents are actually kind of cheap compared to the price of buying that place.
Well, I don't know how much it is to buy here, so I don't know.
Oh, well, like where I am, it's like the apartment I'm in an 85 square metre apartment, and they're around 60 to 70,000 RMB per square metre.
Okay.
But I rent that for like 5,000 RMB.
Right.
So what I mean is, like, if you had a £2 million house in the UK, you'd be looking at like 3 or 4 grand a month, maybe more to rent that. I find the rents here are a lot cheaper, even for more expensive houses.
Well,
if you had to buy them,
I find the rent here really expensive. In Beijing, it's really expensive, especially compared to when we used to live in Nanjing.
But you
I don't
live
know
in the
about
centre here, don't you?
Yeah, but even like further out, like when the area that you stayed in, that's quite an expensive area. A flat there would probably be about 12,000 a month.
Yeah, but I
think that's quite pricey.
But you couldn't go to the UK and get a flat in central London.
Yes,
For
true.
£1,200
yeah,
a month.
I mean, it's still cheaper than London. Yeah.
I mean, you'd be looking at £1,200 a week.
Yeah,
I wouldn't dream of being able to live alone at my age in the UK.
Right, yeah.
No chance. Even in a rural area where I used to live. Whereas I can, rent a nice little studio place here for next to nothing really. It's like 2,000 a month or something, which is really nice.
Our place in Nanjing was 3,800 a few years ago, and it was a 2-bedroom property, and it was huge. Like, it was all like the living room and stuff was all kind of open. We had a study, we had a master bathroom. But here our rent is a lot higher. We pay like 8.5.
Yeah,
but we do live in the centre, so I can't. It's like it's a toss-up,
with like living in the centre of Birmingham or London or Manchester.
Yeah, right.
You wouldn't get anything for that kind of money.
I mean, it's expensive here. But comparison to like back home, it's still cheaper, and it's still like just the cost of living in general, like getting the metro, and like compared to London, the tube is so expensive and things like that.
One of the coolest things about Chinese cities is that you can really live as cheap as you want or as expensive as you want, and all the in between. Like, I've had times where I first came here where I didn't have much money at all, and I was eating for 50 RMB a day, and you can do that. And then if you've got more, you can spend more. So it's quite cool.
Even in Beijing, you can, because you can get the subway and it's only two.
Sure. I mean, the travel here is insanely cheap compared to back in the UK, isn't it?
Yeah.
My parents live near Peterborough, and at peak times to get into London, a return ticket to London, you're probably looking at £80.
Right.
You can almost travel from one end of the country to the other end of China here for that. It's way cheaper.
Like where I live as well, like to get a taxi back home in like 20 minutes to get a taxi from Newcastle to Morpeth, which is the town that I live, it was like £30, which is like over 300 quid. And even to get like, it's not even that to get like 2 hours away here. Like you can get to the wharf for that.
Yeah, it is. It's so cheap here compared to.
And then
this is that long one that we saw when we were on the end.
I'm going to keep this going as maybe we can upload it as a walk and talk or something. Yeah. This goes into the.
Watch out.
This goes into the. I'm going to get run over while filming. That's not a good idea. This runs into the thing about freedom, right? Because like that is one type of freedom that you have in China, is to be able to afford to eat out, to be able to afford to get around the city very cheaply, that you might not have if you lived in England.
So do you eat out in restaurants? I bet you eat out in restaurants way more here than you would back in the UK, don't you?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. We eat quite a lot. I think me and Jack, we kind of like to cook a lot as well, so we cook more, and actually it's probably more expensive to cook than it is to get a takeaway. Oh my God.
Especially when you factor in the time.
Dog.
Yeah.
And like the ingredients, because fruit and veg is cheap, but if you wanted to cook, generally we don't cook Chinese food because why would we? We can get amazing Chinese food. We would cook something we would have in the UK back home.
Yeah.
So it would be slightly more expensive ingredients.
Imported
or-
foods generally.
Yeah, imported.
I mean, things that I notice are like cheese and milk
Cheese,
and
yeah.
it's really expensive compared to
love
back then, like
cheese.
dairy products.
So yeah, that's the things that we spend more money on. And I mean, it's the same with also like food here. If you buy Chinese food, it's obviously much cheaper than if you buy Western food, but sometimes you want both. Yeah.
What's kind of funny as well is we're talking about how inexpensive it is to live in these cities, and we're talking about Shenzhen and Beijing, which are two of the most expensive
Yeah.
cities in the whole of
Yeah,
China.
that's true.
So
Yeah, I think
if you're prepared to come here, and you really would have to learn the language if you want to live in like a third or fourth tier city. But if you're prepared to do that, you can live so inexpensively.
Yeah.
I've seen videos of people go to like a smaller city and they can rent a big apartment for next to nothing. So that's like,
Crazy.
It is, yeah, that's right. I mean, in Chongqing, people are talking about they can rent downtown city centre apartments for like 2,000 or 3,000 RMB.
Wow.
That's like,
That is crazy.
yeah, it's very different.
yeah, they've got quite a big, actually way less at the moment though, foreigner, what's the word I'm looking for? They've got a lot of foreigners in Beijing and Shenzhen and Shanghai
This
compared
is
to,
probably, like, the busiest we've done.
I know,
I'm sorry.
we're doing a walk and talk.
Took us down a bad one.
See, this is why you need to drop a like, because we're putting our lives at danger to bring these videos to you.
So just back to the freedom thing, you see, I feel that a lot of Westerners will say Chinese haven't got freedom, and all they really mean by that is that they can't criticise the government here, and yet, there are many other freedoms here. The freedom to be able to be mobile because it's so cheap to travel, the freedom to be able to eat out a lot more, and I don't think that's just for Westerners who generally earn quite decent salaries here
none
in
of my
China.
friends cook.
Yeah.
None of my Chinese friends cook.
A lot of them don't have
even know how
kitchens.
to. Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of them don't know how to. Their mothers cooked for them,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
so if they live on their own, a lot of them just get takeaway. Because when I used to live in Nanjing, there was a lot of street food options, and it is really cheap. You could get fried rice for like $7.
Sure.
Usually in Beijing, it's a bit more expensive because it's a
Same
capital
as
city. I
Shenzhen,
mean,
yeah.
obviously it's more expensive.
I mean, Shenzhen is relatively expensive because the salaries are pretty high there.
Yeah.
You know,
It's all relatable, isn't
Yeah,
it?
you go to the, like Olive was just saying, the third and fourth tier cities, and because the salaries are much lower, the cost of living is much lower.
Yeah, exactly.
What would be interesting to know is any of you who are watching this, if you are in China or not, whereabouts do you live, and how do you feel about the average sort of wage compared to living expenses in the city that you live in? So drop your comments down below. That's been a nice little spontaneous walk and talk.
Didn't get run over. Woohoo!
Didn't get run over, which is always a bonus. This is Nico. She lives in Beijing. She runs a channel with her husband, so please do go and check that out. The link or down below. The link will be down below. As always, if you would like to watch more videos on the channel, drop a subscription, and you'll be notified when they do go live. And that is us signing out from Beijing. For now, take care.
It's gonna squeeze through. Bye, guys.
Take care.